Jimmy Stynes was a giant, in every sense of the word, right from the very first moment I laid eyes on him. It'd be wrong to suggest that we were close from day one. He was a novelty, and for a 16-year-old kid from country Victoria, he fulfilled all of my preconceived notions of what an Irishman should be. Pale, lean, with an accent that was perfect for telling Irish jokes. Beyond that, I didn't give him too much thought. My mind was captivated by the real footballers at our club, most notably the legendary Melbourne Footy Club figure, Robbie Flower. He was the man I aspired to be. How did it come to pass then, 27 years down the track, with the greatest respect to Robbie, that the Irish curiosity that I first encountered on the car park outside the MCG was to become and will remain the person that I judge and measure myself by? With time and age or some form or degree of maturity comes perspective, and I realised that life is more than just football. And I now see the irony in that I was to become the leader of the football club and help set a standard for others to follow, while all the while it was Jim who was doing the real leading and setting the real standard. I see that with such clarity now. I didn't then, and it led to doubts about Jimmy. Why was he not fanatical and obsessed like I was? Why did it appear that football was just a game to him where it was much more to me? Why could he smile an hour after a losing game, whereas it took me a weekend to get over it? Why did he not embrace the so-called manly elements of our game as enthusiastically as the next bloke, where drinking beer and attracting girls was a badge of honour, worn as proudly as anything achieved on the playing field? Why could he be as passionate about the welfare of others outside the club when I was predominantly obsessed with what happened solely within? Why was he so prepared to buck the system and explore an alternative path when the rest of us were so aligned to the one that had been trod so rigidly for decades? Why did he not shy away from displaying his emotions where I saw it as a weakness to do so? Why was he so fervently proud of his Irish heritage when I had barely given mine a second thought? Why was he so sensitive to issues of racial and religious tolerance ahead of his time, while I was ignorantly part of the problem? I thought he had it all wrong. What I now know to be true is that my doubts were less about Jim and more about myself. And I say that not self-consciously, but with some degree of pride. Because it means that I've truly come to appreciate the man that Jim Stynes was. And if that paints me in a lesser light, then I'm fine with that, for there are few, if any, that can compare to him. Quite simply, Jimmy refused to let the game define who he was. It was just a part of him, and it allowed us to marvel at his determination, unwavering self-belief, resilience, strength, skill, endurance and courage. But he never let the game compromise what else he had going on in his life. He showed me that you can be committed but not obsessive, the need to separate the playing field from the field of life, that you can gain satisfaction out of the contest regardless of the result, that you could enjoy the environment and male bonding that footy provided, but always maintain a sensitivity to what is right and wrong, that you never get so tunnel vision that you don't recognise the needs of others, that you can be both compassionate and ruthless in the pursuit of excellence. He was secure enough to know that displaying vulnerability can be a strength and not a weakness. So now he's left us, and it doesn't feel right or fair in any way. I was honoured to have been able to spend some intimate time with him in the past few months, and I'll never forget those moments. We laughed more than we cried, which, as I've written about, was consistent throughout our relationship. I took a photo on one of the last occasions I sat with him and had the chance to say goodbye. It is deeply personal and highly symbolic of our 27-year friendship. It will serve as a constant reminder of him, what he stood for and how profound an impact he had on me, of just how right he got his 45 years. The photo will sit on my wall at home, and every time I look at it, I will think of the man he was and the one I can only ever hope to be. I love you, Jimmy.
In my time, there's never been a better story. And there's been a lot of great stories.
Not one of the greatest football story that we'll have.
Not only did he learn the game after not having seen it, not having been brought up with it, but he actually probably got it as well as anyone else.
A young kid comes from Ireland, never played the game before, makes good in his skill set to be able to get a game in the first place, but then win the best award in the world for football.
So we declare Jim Stynes from the Melbourne Football Club the winner of the 1991 Brownlow Medal.
I mean, his list just goes on and on and on.
In lots of ways, he changed the game, the way he played.
Stynes superbly done. 30 metres out, snaps and kicks it.
The thing I loved the most about Jimmy as a player was just his resilience, just his toughness, just to week after week to compete. You always knew that you were going to get 100% effort from him.
If you ever went into battle, you always knew what you were going to get. And that was an inspiration on its own. You could back him in, he'd lead from the front.
He was just a competitive mongrel. He loved it, and he was a very, very good player that, reached the very top. And he reached the top because he didn't give in.
It was fantastic to coach because he was professional before his time. There wasn't anything that he wasn't prepared to do to get himself up to play.
He had an enormous capacity to be able to run all over the ground and get into positions.
Well, he had great fitness and stamina in that sense, but he had great inner strength in himself to push himself beyond.
It's not about the size and the marrow, it's the size and the fight of the marrow.
When he set his mind to do something, he jumped over great adversity to achieve those goals.
He leaves the Melbourne Football Club, I think, the most important person that the footy club has had go through their doors in the last 100 years.
His contribution is unbelievable to the Melbourne Footy Club, and he's a special person and will be remembered as one of the all-time greats.
For what Jimmy Stynes did to the Melbourne Football Club is truly, as a player and to go and win a Brownlow, as a president to make sure this club is there for the eternity of life, it's just magnificent.
Stynes could run in and kick a goal. The Irishman gets it on his 150th. Well done, Jimmy.
It's going to be one of the great footy stories ever, I would think.
It's going to take one hell of a story to beat it, isn't it?
The Jim Stynes story, it's a powerful one, and it's got to be told for generations to come.